So how is your React doing today? Are you hooked? Everyone is talking about hooks. I'm not going to talk about hooks today. Yeah. Hi, Amsterdam. I'm so stoked to be staying here again on that stage. It feels like you all know who I am. I still have this slide. The second thing is my last name. It's the same as my Twitter handle. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, do that. And you might know me, as Yanni just said, about from my open source work. So a few years ago, I've been standing here and introducing this package I wrote, and that you guys also decided to give an award for me. I was super happy to receive it in my at home. I was happy to have it. But the story, why I'm telling it right now is because one of my slides was this one. So, so I show this slide, and everyone was like, "Yeah, it's so cool, it's so cool." And imagine what just a few days ago, a friend of mine, Sergey, posted this picture on Twitter. So they made stickers out of it. How cool is that? And I was like, wait a minute, what is it? Is it the meme of a meme? So yeah, I live in Vienna, the boring city of Vienna, as Juho would say. Juho is a good friend of mine. He's from Finland. He moved to Vienna, and then everyone is asking, hey, how's Vienna? He's like, it's boring. And I'm like, oh, okay, I probably don't want to move it. He's like, yes, we don't want more people. I don't know why. He doesn't want more people coming to Vienna. I actually want more people coming to Vienna because Vienna is amazing. And you might know where's React Vienna, and as Yanni just said, Max is also here. Max is also part of React Vienna Mafia, and we do this meetup. So if you're in Vienna and you want to visit one of our meetups, we would be happy even to host you as a speaker. So reach out to me or Max. And Vienna is also famous for that building, and that's a Museum of History of Art, which I really love. And that is the building where we use art and paintings as wallpapers, quite literally. So they put paintings so high on the walls, it doesn't feel like it's painting. It's just like, yeah, we have so many of them, why not? And one of my favorite paintings is The Tower of Babel by Peter Bruegel. And there's a story about this painting, which I want to read. So according to the story, a united humanity speaking a single language agreed to build a city and a tower tall enough to reach heaven. God, observing their city and tower, confounds their speech so that they can no longer understand each other and scatter them around the world. And I found it's interesting in relation to my work, the front-end work or user interface work. But before that, I decided to search how many languages are out there in the world. And apparently there were more than 7,000 active languages people speak, which is amazing, I think, like so many languages. And some of them are cool, some of them like Finnish. It's like, what? I live in Austria, they speak German. And German is also a really interesting language, actually. I quite like it, but many people are like, what? Schmetterling? And Austrians, they have a different pronunciation, so German would say Schmetterling. No offense, it's just a joke. And once I tried to learn French, I gave up pretty much at that point. So some languages are really, really, really hard. There's also cat languages, like a cat language. It's a cat language. There's also a doggy language, apparently. I really like this illustration when I was looking for languages, so it's all right. But then I thought, OK, what is a language? And I found this definition which I really, really like. And it says, language is a system. There's a limited, finite system of units that combine hierarchically and recursively into larger units. And then I was thinking about design language. And if you think about design language, it also has this smaller units like typography, like these building blocks, right? Typography, color, and spacing. And if you start combining them in different variations, you pretty much get the infinite number of variations out of it. So you can do whatever you want. But sometimes infinite number of variations isn't the ideal case. Sometimes we really want to limit the amount of variations. So if you look at all of these buttons, they all come from the same website, apparently. And they all do the same thing, apparently. So why are there so many? And how do we reduce this amount? Yeah? How do we reduce the amount of languages? And what we could do, we can create a system by reducing the choice in each of these building blocks. We can actually reduce the total amount of possible variations. And here's an example of how NBMB did it. So you can clearly see how we have just a couple of type definitions, a couple of colors, and a couple of spacing definitions. And out of these couples, we can build still a lot of different user interface elements, but they're not going to be as chaotic as a picture before. And they call it design systems. So it's not only these things, we also have much more in design systems. And I have this definition of a design system which says, design system defines a set of design-related rules as a system of instructions that can be reused across single or multiple products. And I really like this definition as well, because it says word system of instructions, and we're going to get to that point. And I have an illustration of how design system and a lack of design system might look in the real world. So I took the screenshots of German government and Austrian government, different ministries. They all have logotypes. So in Germany, they have a design system for building a logotype for government organizations, where in Austria, people are probably just being more creative. So they're like, yeah, let's create a logo. Or, hey, my son learned Photoshop. He can do a logo for, police. Why not? And it also applies to digital products we build. So in Germany, the same. All the websites, they follow this. The rules aren't super strict, but they all follow these rules. So if you look at these different websites for different ministries, they all kind of look the same. And it's a good thing, because once you visited one of these and you go to the second one, you know how to use it. You know where navigation is, you know where search is, you know where to look for a logo, the header, hero element. You feel comfortable. You feel at home. And here in Australia, we have like, my son just learned HTML, so let's hire him to build a website. And you get this all different things, and Austria probably spends a lot of money on that. And it's a bad user experience. So if you switch between, they all kind of connected, so there's like big portal where you can go to those different websites. So I just clicked a couple of links, I opened them and screenshotted them, and all of them, but they look different. And it's less than ideal user experience, I would say. Which brings me to the topic of design language for digital products, where I think the user interface is the design language of our digital product. So instead of thinking like, I don't know, it's a red color or whatever, in these tiny, tiny details, we think in a bigger details, like we have a list of things, and in the list of things we have a thing, like a card or something, a list item. And in the list item we have smaller things like avatars, text, button, icons, right? And we call them components. So we think in these components. And the idea isn't new, so it is kind of newish for us, for front-end developers, but it's been probably a decade or even more. It's been used in native platforms like iOS. They have this thing. You can just drag and drop things into the canvas, and it's going to build a user interface for us. And in that, the Yandex introduced this BAM thing, but there are also different ways of this. How can we componentize our front ends, right? So we've been talking about this for years now. And one of the probably most famous component library out there is a Bootstrap. So probably everyone knows. Who knows Bootstrap? Everyone, right? Raise your hand. Yeah, right. Don't be lazy. I know everyone knows it. But where's the problem somehow? So we kind of have these things on one hand, but on the other hand, we have these design tools, right? So we design our interfaces with, apparently with lines, arrows, stars, polygons, you know? So we have design tools that aren't capable of this component thing. So we still draw lines. And developers, they also kind of, you know, we have these languages we use. We have CSS, we have HTML, we have JavaScript. And these are low-level languages. You have to write a lot of code. But the most important thing here is, I think, there are different languages we talk to each other. Like designers, they talk this design language, and developers, yeah. Developers, we talk HTML, and we talk CSS. And I've been using CSS for I don't know how many years now, and I still suck at it. So I don't know how to send an element from my first attempt, so I always need to go to this page. And that's just one property, right? Just take a look at it. It's not even a spec. The spec is even longer. So my keynote actually crashed once because when I dragged this image, it's like 50,000 pixels tall. It just said, no, not gonna do it. RAM, out of RAM. And designers, they, as I said, they draw beautiful pictures with beautiful stars and polygons. And the pictures are beautiful, don't get me wrong. I like these pictures. But the problem with pictures, you can't take a picture and make it to user interface without effort. So if you look at this, it's like, yeah, it looks cool. So what should I do about it? So how do I go from first screen to the second screen? What should happen? So because the button somehow is, it's not where, it's somewhere, it's sitting lower, and should it transition where? Should it just jump? Should it, I don't know. How should this look on a bigger screen? I don't know. We don't know. That's a problem. And then, like, should probably designers code? So they can just, you know, code the code. And the designer's like, yeah, developers need to learn design because, you know, they don't understand us. But I think, yeah, I mean, it would be ideal, right, if we would just go and learn these things, but there's so many of us and just so few time. We want to do more things, right? We can't do everything. If only we could speak this common language, so we could communicate efficiently at least. And I think we could, because there's this designer language, and there's this developer's language, and there's something in between. And I think there's something in between called UI primitives, because this is what we build upon, right? We build upon UI primitives, so why not talk about UI primitives to each other? So what are UI primitives? So if you look at the components again I've been referring to, they all can have these multiple variants with different states, right? And the interesting thing about the primitives, you can combine them into bigger things. So you can do a login form out of these components, or you can do a search toolbar out of these components. And imagine how many different complex things you could build from real components. This is just, yeah, stupid things I draw in Keynote. And now let's take a look at the button. The button has this variance, right? Default, primary, secondary. And then designers talk about the button. They're probably going to use words like default button, primary button. Hey, can we have a secondary button, please, here? Right? Because that feels natural, because this is how we refer to that button. But developer, they would then do that. They would write that code. And not even it's like a lot of code, it's also a very ambiguous code. Why do we have two ways of creating that in HTML? And where is the third way, which is not like a good way, but it still produces the same shape on screen? And many people probably just gonna do that because they don't know how to do the button right? So it's kind of, okay, we need to think about it. What is a button? And that is a problem. It leads to that. It leads to lots of different buttons because you have this choice. You can do whatever you want. If only we could talk the same language as designers talk, right? And I mean, seriously, come on. Yeah, that's what everyone is probably doing right now. And you probably think, hey, who is this clown on stage? Why are you telling us that? Yeah, React gives us this ability. We can just define this button primitive and say, hey, it's a kind of primary, and yeah, it's the same language. It's cool. And not only it's much more concise and clear in a way we communicate in code, it also has a byproduct. We can now generate like style guides. Simple, right? Because we know what all the possible states. And that is something I think really powerful, because now we can take a style guide, go to design and say, hey, we only have these buttons. Are you sure you want this new one? And most of the time I tell this, people are like, yeah, cool. But you know, we have a HTML button. Why do we need your button? We have an HTML. HTML is cool. But the thing is, the button on the left-hand side and the button on the right-hand side are fundamentally different things, in my opinion. Because the button on the left is an HTML button, but the button on the right is, yeah, you probably know that. So let's take a look at the difference, right? With HTML button, we have a CSS as a semantic thing, and HTML is pretty much, yep. And they have a lot of power with CSS, right? Everyone loves power. How much power do you need? All of it. So with CSS, you can break things. You can do good things, but you can also do bad things, right? And it's not really reusable. Where with a primitive button, we can establish a contract. We can say, hey, the button can only have these 3 variants. That's it, or 2, or even 1. And you don't write CSS in HTML, which is actually a good thing, you know? And it's reusable. And most of the time, people, yeah, okay, sold. We're gonna do buttons, like you do. But this paragraph, spans, and text, is it really necessary? All this abstraction, it's so complex. Why do we need abstractions over simple things we have in HTML for years? We could just learn them and use them. But it's not how it works, because the choice, right? And let's look at text, right? The text also, they have a design system. And in a design system, we say we have normal, secondary, and dangerous text, which must be read. And designers, again, they say this. They say, I want this dangerous text here, please. Can we do it for error message? And developers, yeah, sure. Wait a minute. How do we do dangerous text? So we do p-style color red, right? Or not? We don't know. We don't know. That's the point. And it leads to that. Like, all these unnecessary styles, and users, they suffer. They look at your website and they're like, oh, what is it? Yeah, same thing. If only we could have a text primitive, we could say, hey, text kind danger, or dangerous, or whatever. Yeah? So, an interesting thing, the same principles apply to pretty much everything we have in HTML. Yeah? And the benefits are the same. You can now generate the documentation for free out of your code. You don't need to do anything. But there's one more reason, I think. These HTML primitives, they are designed for simple things, because the web was designed for documents. So we have this text and headings and links and buttons, kind of, you know, why not? But then designers can say, hey, I need a drop-down. It's like, say again? Drop what? And like, yeah, okay, let's do Bootstrap. So we can just copy-paste this, and we try to, you know, fill it somehow so it works. But I don't think this is how we should write drop-downs. So on this HTML, we have to understand all of these things. And if you do a typo or a mistake, it's probably not going to work. Where with primitives, not only it's simple to understand as a code, it's written code. It's also kind of, it reads like, you know, we have a drop-down with menu items in it. One of these items is divider. You couldn't tell that without completely reading the whole code, HTML, and looking at its CSS, right, on the left side. So I think HTML versus primitives can be boiled down to, in HTML and CSS being used as API, we use these things as APIs, but they aren't designed for being APIs, right? So we have to write lots of it, and we have a lot of choice, which some people consider good, but I don't. Because there's a loose contract, so you can do a lot of things. doing a lot of things oftentimes means doing things wrong. So we can't enforce design constraints. Where on primitive side, we can have this shared language, we can speak the same words, literally. Don't write CSS and HTML. And we have a stricter contracts, we can limit the choice, which is amazing. And we can enforce design constraints. And you might be asking, okay, but are designers going to be on board with it? And I think they will, because if you use this architecture, and if you use it consistently, you can now generate style guides, or you can take the primitives you use in your code and put it into Sketch. With React Sketch app or different implementations. And AppDesign, for example, is leveraging this. So they have this UI library you can just install over NPM as a React component. But they also ship the style guide, the Sketch library for designers with literally the same components up to date. So it's always up to date. And it's cool. So designers can use the same primitives without designing them. And Airbnb taking it to the next level, so they generate whole assets out of a out of a design system. These simple primitives I showed in the beginning, and it's a lot of assets. But they going to the point where they design these components. They just use the same components you see on a website in Sketch. So designers love that. And Mark, who's gonna give talk after me, he did it a few years ago. He did it for SIG, and you can have this named groups of things in Sketch without a lot of effort. And it works even without, fancy CSS and JS things. You probably not won't be able to convince a team to switch over, right? So what is it in UI primitives for design systems? And if you look at the definition of a design system as a set of design-related rules, as a system of instructions that can be reused, right? We are engineers here. When I hear set of instructions, I'm getting pumped. Everything that has a set of instructions can be programmed, right? We are engineers. So we can just do that. We just remove all this set of instructions, put it in UI primitives, and we redefine the whole thing. We say design system defines a set of UI primitives that can be reused across single multiple products. Simple. Okay, common language. Language is a system with a limited finite system of It sounds like it's user interface definition to me. User interface is a system with a limited instance of primitives that can be combined into bigger things, right? That's UI. Yeah, we getting to the end of my talk. I would like to close this the notion of universal language, because I believe that universal language is much more important as a universal technology, which we have in the web. Because it's much more easier to iterate on technology as in a language. So if we can't communicate with each other efficiently, we can build products. We can be as efficient as humans who try to build this tower, right? And that's why we need this shared language. That's why we need to talk to each other. So in the end, it's all about humans, but with this shared language, what we can do, we can leverage technology, actually, and make greater things. And that's kind of it. And that's the website. Artyom and me, we just did a workshop a few days ago. Actually, someone forgot a charger, so find me. Yeah, so we're launching this website where we want to collect all these kind of ideas and articles and stuff, or even tools that would help developers and designers build better architecture for front-end. And we're also giving workshops, so if you're interested in this topic, in design system topic and component-driven development, talk to us, follow this new thing, and yeah, thank you very much.